Mike, thanks for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. I've been wanting to do this for a while.
Of course. Glad we got you in here. All right, so we're going to talk about special operations. We're going to talk about war games and virtual reality. But before we get into that, for everybody who doesn't know you, who are you? What do you do?
Mike Simmons, I'm co-founder, COO of Eolian VR. And we do really mixed reality software development for SOCOM is kind of was our initial primary customer. We built a platform called ARTAK that does mission planning, command and control, using 3D maps, digital twins, right? And then adding a ton of data overlay and real-time data and simulation, thing like that on top of it.
Gotcha. And so tonight you're here in DC because we got an event going on with the APFIT team here, all the folks coming out from Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering, having APFIT night here. You were one of the first winners of the APFIT program, yeah?
Yes, sir. We were the first cohort. Oh, man, that was quite a surprise. It was a blessing, and but also there's a line that, you could tell the innovators by the arrows in their back, and it certainly was a little bit of a struggle blazing the trail, but hey, everything's worked out. I think they're on number 6 now and crushing it. And that program absolutely changed our life. The valley of death is a real thing. And I think in the last interview I watched where he's like, there's multiple valleys, that is absolutely true. And just, we kind of were in no man's land after building, doing a prototype OTA for SOCOM and just didn't kind of know how to transition, where to go. And not for that there was an interest in all that, right? Just, that's kind of how.
And SOCOM was your initial user out of the APFIT, but it wasn't really just SOCOM headquarters, right? You were able to get your capability out to basically every special operations component, right? Navy SEALs, Marine Raiders, Green Berets, the whole group, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and we started building it as a prototype OTA with SOCOM S&T. We did that for like a year, kind of during COVID, right? We literally started right when COVID hit, which was a challenge in its own right, because we didn't get the operator feedback that we needed in the beginning. We were kind of on an island there. And then we, again, we got lucky. We're selected for the APFIT program, got the 3-year production OTA. And part of that included, so here's another challenge that we didn't necessarily think through, is that we're a software company and, we have a patent, we're engineers, all that stuff. But we had to become a hardware company as well, because there's no AR headsets, no VR headsets in SOCOM, right? So we ended up basically making it productize it by making a kit. And we procured the HoloLens 2 devices, the MetaQuest 2, to do AR and VR both. And then we also included tablets and, edge nodes and things like that, put it all in a nice Pelican case, set it up. So the chargers and everything was all dialed in, made it pretty. And part of the deal was 39 in total and kind of spread throughout SOCOM. So like you said, all the special forces groups got one. There was even one that went to West Point, and which is kind of nice that, it was a broad range of people who got it. Again, we originally kind of built it as, for like, 6-man team, right? Land warfare kind of thing. And we started getting people, from 160 who needed air capabilities, right? We did the Navy SEALs who, needed underwater capabilities. So it kind of was a blessing in that we built out, and I think we shipped literally we averaged an update every like 2 or 3 days throughout those first 3 years to make this thing as useful for the operators as possible. Blew through our budget. We literally just plowed everything back from the contract into making this thing useful, and so that the operators, needed it and wanted it, and it was worth it.
Love it. That's what we should all be in it for, right? Serving the warfighters and the things they need to fight tonight. And as we see right now with all the shit going on with Iran, they need it. So since you won, right, there's been IVAS stood up, and then IVAS stood down, and then they started back up again, and now it's a same program, different participants. And add on top of that, since you won back in 22?
Yep.
How much AI and especially the LLMs and everything that's been going on has matured since then, people are like really just thinking all about AI now. But what's going on in the world of AR, VR, modeling in sim, wargaming, like what's that community look like right now, and what does that look like for the warfighter?
Yeah, so 3 years is a freaking eternity in the tech space, and especially in like this innovative space that we're in that is bleeding edge and all that. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because from when we started and procured the kits, right? So technically, calendar year, it started like 23. There's been multiple updates to devices. People have come entered the industry, left the industry. Like the HoloLens 2 was a great device, but they stopped supporting it midway through, right? The Quest 2 ended up having 2 updates. The Quest 3 is still out now, and that's a great device. But again, they're making some changes to how they're kind of running it. We provided some kits with Magic Leap 2, which again came, and they were doing great for the defense space. Then out of nowhere, they kind of shut it down. Their defense unit, which was a bummer because that was a great device too. And there was the Apple Vision Pro, and then there's from that side, it's been crazy, just the hardware side alone, right? And so now part of what the carry forward will be needing a refresh, right? Because again, they stopped manufacturing HoloLens 2, and that's where a lot of kits are. So we're going to swap out with the new device. And there's a few others that are coming that are more US based, that are more compliant, things like that. There were some issues with the hardware initially, again, China trail, things like that.
And on the software side, that's expanded.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, incredibly well. It's absolutely insane to think how fast. Like on one hand, my partner McCormick and our engineering team they had great vision of the future, and that they built it modular open system architecture from the jump, right? Everything's kind of containerized, Kubernetes clusters, right? So we can kind of constantly add new features, add new, kind of plug and play with new technology as it goes. So for example, with how good AI has gotten, not just from like the making of 3D maps, which again, we ended up building our own software and deploying that because we didn't find anything in the market that was really quite good enough and fast enough. And again, that kind of met our needs. So now, I mean, I just saw this new Fable 5, Claude model that just came out like a day or two ago. And you can now build 3D worlds that are like, I mean, that are literally look real kind of in real time. So building these maps out, building these, these digital twins out is going to become way easier, way more scalable. Being able to, again, just the fidelity when we started in 22, again, it was the device would overheat if you're out in the sun too long, there'd be issues, or out in the light. So like all this software and hardware is just kind of accelerated like crazy. And, again, on one hand, I know that there's been some disruption like the VR device side, but again, there's still a lot to be excited about. And then we're able to scale so much faster and do it with a smaller team, quicker, not to mention we built it in a way that I think I've heard from, some of your previous interviews as well, like where the DOW can build their own, capabilities on top, right? And so make it open, allow them to add and to modify as needed, because again, while you can't boil the ocean as a small business, right? And a lot of them want that control, they want that autonomy, and you can't. They want to kind of have ownership, and so luckily we kind of built it that way initially, and so I'm excited about all these transitions that are happening. It's an exciting time to be in this space. Sure.
So there's a lot going on, right? And I would say if you look at the history of APFIT winners, and shout out to our friends at Silicon Valley Defense Group and these other great organizations that are putting a lot of real emphasis on these big raises from these venture-backed companies that are doing all this great stuff. But I mean, if you look at the history of APFIT, and we're getting ready to have the release of the most recent class, right? The 27.1 just opened up. We're going to get the release of the 26.2 here shortly. They don't always line up, right? Mm-hmm. The Silicon Valley Defense Group NatSec100 doesn't look like the APFIT winners all the time.
Yep.
But you spend a lot of time with the users, right? We know that there's a lot of snake oil out there, fake technology. You start getting in the world of war games, models, simulation, people go down to ITSEC and there's all kinds of like, what's real in the world of where you're working? What are the users really using this for? Is it just mission planning, or are they thinking outside of that? Is IVAS really ever going to be a combat application? I mean, what's real when you talk to the users today, the actual warfighter?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. I read that report too. Hopefully we're on the NatSec100 next year.
Hey.
But you know, and funny enough too, like you mentioned, we are not somebody that's raised a bunch of outside money, right? We did a small kind of seed round. Most of it was, you know, debt anyway that we paid back already. So like, and I remember reading the DIUX book, and that one of their complaints, I was so offended at the time and really annoyed. But they're like, the APFIT, they're not all, you know, basically they were complaining that they weren't all venture backed companies, and I took a bit of offense to that because, you know, we weren't venture backed. And again, we absolutely performed above and beyond throughout the contract, right? But in this space, I think, you know, again, because we would see a lot of the snake oil stuff, right? Because again, anyone can make a good video. A lot of times that's what they put out there and make it look like it's real. You know, which again, as we both know, you know, and you know, you can do anything in a video, right? So like, and we've been building this thing for real and having people try it and actually demo the tech and actually using it in real life, and not just kind of showing what it could be, right? Again, you know, not to say we won't put out videos of the art of the possible and all, but like we are pretty transparent about what exists right now. And so people are using it for pre-mission planning, mostly a lot of training exercises, things like that, for command and control. For, you know, we have integrations with ARTAK and Andro Lattice and things like that. So, and we're ingesting, you know, satellite positioning, ship positioning, plane positioning, right? So you're seeing all these things moving in real time, overlaid on top of the digital twin, the 3D map. And, you know, we're doing Lidar scans for interiors of buildings, right? We're doing underwater maps as well. We have underwater drones that'll go and actually do a map. You know, we're interfacing with NGA and, you know, or using whatever 3D model they already have, right? If they're using another service provider, what have you, we ingest it. And, it's pretty seamless. And then at the edge, they have the base layer Google map that's a little bit less fidelity, but it's still extremely useful with zero internet. Obviously, like Starlink is kind of helpful with that, but you know, again, in that, you know, environment where there's no network, they'll at least still be able to use it and use it well.
Yeah, and to that point, so outside the DOW, right? Obviously, they, you know, the warfighters work in austere environments where they're offline, but other government customers work offline, I'm sure too, right? Like, I don't know, Secret Service, maybe FEMA. Are they looking at the same applications as you look at the total AR VR kind of government market?
Yeah, and to say what's real versus not, I'll give you that, you know, because that's really extremely relevant in that, you know, where a lot of these other people are looking for it for, like, for example, search and rescue or you know, disaster response, Secret Service. They want to see things in real time. You know, on one hand, they want the interior scanned in of the actual building so they can kind of do a virtual walkthrough on the way, you know, have that street view. But they also want to be able to plan, you know, do route planning, right? For if they need to make a quick escape. They want to be able to kind of see where to go in real time and kind of have that, you know, so you do need network for that real time data overlays and stuff like that, right? You need internet connectivity. You can now run a pre-mission plan. We have 20,000 nodes that are all, you know, NATO, mil-spec, and 3D nodes that you can put every train, plane, automobile, and maneuver in there. All that kind of stuff you can do at the edge. That, and you have that, like I said, that kind of Google Earth 3D model. But really, it gets dynamic though if you're able to add the network. So that's one thing I don't know how you really fix without, you know, again, Starlink's been that didn't exist when we first started this, so that made a big difference because we'd be in, you know, just network denied environments a lot. You know, even just from a security standpoint, initially we couldn't get on the network because, you know, when we kind of first launched APFIT. So it's getting, again, it's, and then the, you know, the other thing they're doing is, you know, LZ, you know, infill, exfil planning, right, for 160th, for example, or for the SEALs, they got to go from water to land, right? And, you know, in the Indo-Pacific environment, right, there's still a bunch of mines in the water from, you know, they're even still from, you know, World War II, right?
Yeah.
Things like that, you know, you may not quite, we did a project for EABO and island hopping with DIU and Marine Corps, and like, those are things that are real concerns, right? And so that underwater kind of has been lagging a bit. Obviously, you know, land and air is kind of dialed in. So it's been interesting to kind of just continue to build. And a lot of that comes from just, begging the warfighter for feedback, begging these operators, what do you need? What would you like to see us do? Like, reminding them, even again, sometimes it's not always in your contract, for example, but to do all the, to go above and beyond the development, but it's death if they don't love what you built for them. And again, if it's, so you got to at least try. And, again, certain things are, still on the roadmap that, you don't get to everything, but if you can make a couple quick updates and do them, while you're still there the same week of the training environment, that absolutely goes a long way. And then, another thing we've been doing is there's a lot of partner force training events, right? So we added an AI that you can basically translate language. So, because again, I didn't really mention this, but not only is this a cop and all that, but you could be anywhere in the world with network and be in the same room, seeing the same thing, all, as if you're in the room together and talking. We have voice over IP. So you can plan missions, again, make changes, course correct, monitor and such. But also if you're with, for example, we did a NATO soft supported exercise, and not everyone speaks English. A lot of them do enough.
Mike, hang on a second. Let me stop you here for a second.
Yeah.
Big dumb Marine, New York City public school education. Are you telling me that you can run a international training event where they're in their home station, you're in your home station, and as you're doing the training in between, you're translating back and forth as it's happening in real time?
Yeah, like the UN, the pieces, the earpieces and all that. Now, it's not perfect. I will be absolutely transparent about that, but it's getting better and better. And again, of course, we kind of just did that as just kind of like a side quest sprint, again, kind of leading up to this event, this training exercise. And since then, again, these things exist now where you can just plug and play and drop it in, and and it's pretty good, and it's getting better and better by the day. And for us to we don't necessarily need to even work on that technology ourselves, because again, it's a container that we drop in, and we it's modular, where someone else who's working on that capability, that benefits us as well, right?
You've said INDOPACOM, EABO, partner forces. You're not military.
No.
How'd you get into this?
This is a big accident, to be honest. I worked for an accounting firm for like 10 years in Miami. I was doing consulting for businesses, doing like, CRMs and websites, and doing kind of development and all, but not anything VR or AR. And I was in New York City. I kind of put it on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm in New York City, for a couple of days. My partner McCormick reached out. He's like, "Hey, I'm here. Let's get together." We hadn't seen each other in a while. We were actually neighbors freshman year in college. We were like 2 doors down, and so we knew each other for years. And we got together. We're in DC, or New York City. It was actually my birthday. I'm on a date with my wife, and he third wheels it. And my wife's like, "What the fuck?" But we get to start talking. And at the time, he's doing like 360 videos. If you remember, like 6 GoPros. Right. Like a rig like that, and that's kind of where this thing started. And I kind of always knew that AR VR, was going to take off. I kind of had the idea, because certain video games that really early stuff was coming out. But I realized no one was doing enterprise. No one was doing, the kind of commercial or, those kind of applications yet. Or really for AR as well. And so, we kind of got talking, and it started with going to unpaid. Really, we started doing some healthcare stuff. We got a couple deals here and there, and then McCormick went to like a random unpaid event. It was like a hackathon. Got invited back. I remember he did. It just kind of started snowballing, and then he went to an event where, we went to one where basically we got like $1,200 for the whole week, right? Like just basically like a stipend, and worked nonstop. That led to us being on the Talos program, where we were doing the heads-up display. If you're familiar, like the Iron Man suit that was in SOCOM for a bit, for those who don't know. I don't know how we pulled that off. Like, it was just, right place, right time, I guess. And then, we started doing the TE events and stuff. And so we did a bunch of stuff, not getting paid or getting paid very minimally. And, but then it kind of turned into a point where it looked like it was really viable, right? And, I was of the belief we got to hedge our bets. We got to try and do, basically we can't just focus on military. I remember me and McCormick, we're in Texas doing a T event. It's summer. It's College Station in August. We're like, we've been out all day, like for 14 hours out there. And again, unpaid, just freaking like, demoing and integrating and all that. And we got into a huge fight because he's like, basically, we got to go all in on military. We got to like shut everything else down. We were doing commercial real estate and stuff too. And, I was terrified because I'm like newly married. I got a kid. I'm like, and we, F you. I mean, we got heated. And right in the middle, I kind of stopped to realize, dude, you're absolutely right. Like the only way this works is if we go all in and do nothing else. And man, in hindsight, like, I don't know what gave me that like aha moment, but thank God, because it's one of the best decisions ever. Like that's the only way we could do it. And then, obviously you're working on, dual use, the popular thing right now. You're building there's applications to other stuff as you go. But when you're really trying to, serve two masters in a way, it just becomes really challenging.
I mean, dude, this
is a full-time business.
Dude, that is a philosophical schism inside this industry, is that if you can really be a dual use company, there are absolutely outliers, but I mean, unquestionably, I've never been quiet about this. I believe if you have a 50% true commercial and 50% military, the money's going to come fast and easy on the commercial side, and you're going to cut more and more of that military away just because it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard and it takes a long time. And unless you're dedicated to that mission in the same way that your customers are dedicated to that mission, you're going to take the easy way out. And if your thing catches fire on the commercial sales, you're going to bail on those customers. And to me, that's bullshit.
I remember we had that conversation because I was exploring, because we were considering doing a raise, and I was like, maybe it's time. We've got this in a good place. Maybe we could add more commercial capabilities and such. And I remember you basically told me like, fuck off. No, I don't work with anybody that's not defense only. And but you really talked me back into not going. Again, there's other defense adjacent, like I said, search and rescue. Security, police, fire, like that. I think is one thing. But like, if you go too far out of that, you're not going to do it well. And this is literally taking everything out of me. If I knew what I know now, I remember that NVIDIA guy said, he's like, I don't know, I wouldn't do it again. I would do it again, but like, this has been the hardest fucking journey of my life. The shit I've had to go through, like, I mean, it's 10 years that we just hit in April as a company. And like, it's been a brutal 10 years. Like, I think people think this is easy and there's a lot of money flowing and that's attractive, but like, it's ups and downs. It's, false starts. It's delays, the things you can't even control. Even the things you can control, you think it's going to be one thing. Like we thought the budget was going to hit 3 months late, ends up being 6, right? Like things like that, we prepared for 3. And so I've literally had to refinance my house to freaking make payroll multiple times. I had to borrow money from basically whoever I could. I had to, just get really, really creative and do things that most people aren't willing to do. Again, I think a lot of people just assume, we got APFIT and like we're rich and, got nice big houses and new cars and all that. But no, I'm still driving the same car. We plowed everything back because we knew like it's not about the APFIT win itself. The APFIT gets you to the next one, right? So it's nothing wrong with making a little bit of money, but like it's designed to basically, in my opinion, to reinvest it all, do right by the warfighter, like put it into the capability, and then again, it gives you the opportunity to make money later. And
so you've been big on reinvesting in all of your wins that you're getting, contracts. You go back in. You were saying you do things maybe not outside of scope, but if you can solve a problem in an event for a user in a day or two, you just go ahead and do that. As you look forward into the world of AR, VR, model and sim, as you're looking to make those investments, as you're looking to kind of what's the next horizon, what do you think the application of this looks like in the 3, 5, 10-year horizon for combat and military application?
Oh my gosh, I think even 3 years is going to be mind-blowingly better and different. And so again, right now we have, for example, do a drone scan, you build a 3D map, right? Like I said, Lidar, whatever. And I would say even a 3 to 5 year window, you're going to have real time 3D, the whole freaking planet, damn near real time in 3D even, again, the sat maps and all that, are getting really good, but then even just being able to leverage AI to, again, fill in these gaps that it kind of knows exist. You're going to have we already started being able to deploy drone swarms, right, from our application, things like that. So like basically going a little bit more kinetic and fires and being able to take actions on, not just the planning, not just the, command and control observation and the communication side, but, from AARs and things like that. But where I think where I know this is going is this is going to be, you're going to have the whole world real time. You're going to know where everyone's at. You're going to have, all the data from like the biometrics of soldiers, even down to that granular, where you're going to know this, what this guy's oxygen level is, right? How, dehydrated is he? What are his cortisol levels? Being able to monitor the individual soldier all the way to, the macro view. I think you'll be able to track and monitor where people are in real time. I think, again, you start embedding all the different sensors. I mean, this world is full of literally God knows how many sensors, right? All that data being ingested. And then where the one thing I think, obviously modeling and sim is kind of a big buzzword in the war gaming and all that. I think it's going to be, pretty sooner or later it's going to be Call of Duty style graphics where you're going to be seeing, from that zoomed in perspective all the way to, like the God's eye views, kind of, how we call like the AR version. But then modeling and simulation is going to be, okay, this, these drones are coming this way at this trajectory. These enemy soldiers, are coming this direction. We have this much fuel, this much ammo left, right? All these kind of calculations, and then predicting what's next with a degree of certainty, right? So, the enemy's going to do, and you're going to, basically go like Napoleon style, where you're going to like put in every scenario known to man, right? Their tactics that they've used before and things like that. And be able to start predicting, what your decision is going to, what decisions you're making, what the likelihood of the outcomes are going to be. And then also you're going to have kind of an audit trail to defend the decisions you make right on the back end, right? Or see where, things went wrong, be able to kind of, course correct and modify it through training and things like that.
I almost feel like in the global war on terror, we entered this age with UAS, especially the MQ-9s, right? Always being overhead of the target area, right? Your commander's sitting in the op center and like looking down and watching the Blue Force trackers and all that kind of stuff. I feel like probably in the not too far future, the commander's gonna be back in the op center, but he's gonna be one of the dudes on the ground in a virtual kind of in a virtual kind of way out of his op center, where he's gonna be like, "Hey, Sergeant Smith, cover that field of fire. You cover down on that door," and we might have that level of engagement because of all the sensors and stuff you said that would be there in real time.
Oh yeah, I think
slightly terrifying, by the way.
Oh yeah, but it'll be like what is it? The movie Gamer. I think there was a good movie where like he kind of goes in the video game and and it's like he's there. I think it could certainly get to that level. I think that might be a little bit more like the 10-year, but again, soon in our lifetime, like that kind of fidelity, that kind of real time, and then again, just being able to really have a full handle of kind of everything going on and be able to but the other hand, that something we try to be mindful of is, you going back to your IVAS, what is it, Eagle Eye, I think is the new name from Anduril. I think it could certainly happen. Again, is this version that they have now, going to be the one? Probably not. I think they got to. Again, we always are mindful because we hear all the time people complain about the amount of gear they have to have, keeping their eyes clear. Like I've heard that complaint 5 billion times, right? A lot of times people thought we were IVAS, like we kind of got, almost, and how that kind of went almost was a disservice to us. It's like really we're left to bang right. We've never been, actually, during the operation. That was
right.
Something we never intended to be. So like we were more of supplementing what IVAS was meant to be. And really we were working on getting on Watchtower right before they shipped it over to Anduril. So I was pretty annoyed by that, being one of the apps on there. But again, I think it'll get there, but I think it's got to get way smaller, way lighter. Again, people already, have enough equipment, enough things going on. It's got to not really get in the way of the operator. Again, I think training, can
100%.
help and all that, but really, we've always been mindful of how do you not add more batteries, add more ththings they got to plug in, and be mindful, try to build this capability in a way that keeps all these things in mind, keeps weather in mind, keeps, again, the things that, a lot of people that build in a vacuum or in a lab and not in the field miss, right? And I think, again, I do think IVAS did course correct for a bit. They really were. I thought they were on the right track. I have confidence in Andrew, that they'll be able to pull it off. Again, it's they hired a lot of the right people. I think, I know a lot of people that work there, and like I said, even just seeing some of the the integrations that we've got, I hope that we're a application on it.
Yeah.
I hope it works out, but I think they got a little bit of a ways to go until someone's using it when bullets are flying.
Yeah. Well, I think, Mike, I think for, a final point to anyone out there who's a founder, thinking about being a founder, thinking about being an investor, I think the big key takeaway from this is listen to the warfighter, work for the warfighter, and really, I think you've discussed and kind of shared a lot of the commitment it takes. I mean, a bunch of different people have said it in a bunch of different ways, right? They're willing to risk their lives for the country. You should at least be willing to risk your job.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you've taken that journey. And for anybody looking to get into this, it's not easy. It's not fast, but you're serving a real mission, and you need to remember that and engage there and build for the warfighter.
Oh yeah. That I think is the most paramount. And then you also have to keep an eye on big R requirements. I heard in the Devin interview too, where he's like, man, and this happens to us all the time. I literally felt it in my soul when he was saying this. You build relationships too, and that commander, that leader's out of the seat. By the time it's time to actually make a decision, it's going through the requirements process is brutal. The program of record, the ATO. So you got to really be, keep an eye on both. But the only way you get there really is if this is useful to the operator and the warfighter. None of those other things even matter if this is not something that moves the needle and absolutely makes their life better in a impactful, meaningful way. Again, when we first were rolling out ARTAK, it wasn't good enough, right? And on one hand, it was terrifying to hear that kind of thing, but fuck, if we don't do something fast, it's going to be a paperweight and sit there in a closet and never see the light of day. And so, the only thing you can really do if you want to survive is make sure this is as useful as possible. And then the other thing you do is, become a member of Frontier House and, work with Mike McKay.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the plug. On that note, we do have a Frontier House event tonight. Mr. Devin Bohannon is here from APFIT, the program manager. He's got his whole team coming up. So we're going to wrap right here and go get into that.
Can't wait. All right. I got one more shout out to my son, Max. And
Max, what up? What up, Max? All right, Mike. Hey, thanks for coming by. Appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, thanks
my man.